Hi, this is Robert Clinkenbeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders and business owners to provide you with some value to help you scale your business, become a better leader, and push yourself out of your comfort zone into something which is going to stretch you. We really hope you enjoy these shows, and we really encourage you to like and share with your friends and network, which is only going to help us get a wider audience and improve our industry. I'm super excited to announce that in 2023, we're going to be announcing new partnerships, digital courses, some rebranding, and your opportunity to be coached by one of our many industry leaders, experts, or coaches. Cheers, everyone. Hi, this is Robert Clinkenbeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm really excited today to be joined by Tim Wingate Jr. Tim, thanks for joining the show today.
Oh, man. Thanks for having me, Robert. I appreciate it.
So I've got your birthday tomorrow. It's a Friday. You seem excited. You seem stoked, ready to go.
I'm ready to go. I sent my kids off to Maryland this morning. So I have a birthday weekend all by myself. Well, not by myself, me and my wife. So,
nice.
But it should be fun.
Cool. Awesome. Well, have fun. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
So, Tim, I have quite a large audience, multiple places around the world. Tell my audience a little bit about your background, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a licensed enrolled agent, and that's the separate side of a CPA. So a CPA is licensed by the state. A licensed enrolled agents are licensed by the IRS. So I can represent companies and individuals before the IRS across state lines. So, anywhere in the nation. And my background, as far as construction goes, is that I was raised in a construction household. My father, he still is a general contractor in the space, and I'm his accountant. So, okay. So that's kind of where my construction knowledge come from, and my mentorship come from is just learning from him. And then the accounting piece, just kind of coupling that together with that construction knowledge really allowed me to want to specialize in this space. And so I've been doing that for the last, 4 years here, but I've been, the company has been around for 7 years, because when I first started, I was not specializing in construction. I was kind of servicing all industries, but the last 4 years here, I've been specializing in the construction world and been having fun and meeting some great people and love, helping their businesses grow and changing their lives.
Okay, that's awesome. So the first question I wanted to ask is, and it hit a chord with me, because when I had my landscape business, we had, a couple hundred trucks, we had heavy equipment, we had backhoes, we had, bobcats, all this types of equipment. And, but I think by chance, I had a CPA, that accountant, who specialized in the construction world.
Okay.
And I think that was definitely, really beneficial to me, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand the difference between just going to a regular accountant versus a construction accountant. So tell me a couple of things about, I suppose, what construction owners should know about coming to a specialized, accountant, or just being able to understand their business more.
Yeah. So I think the number one benefit is, that I'm working with not just you in the construction industry, but everyone else. So I have access to different clients and kind of what they're doing, best practices in the industry, how they're being profitable, those type of things. So I'm able to bring that to every, individual, a client. So that's one big plus of having a construction accountant versus just a general accountant. The other thing is we specialize in managerial accounting. So it's just not, what I made this month, what I lost, what I spent out this month. It's also getting into how well this project performed this month. And you only can do that by proper job cost accounting. And job cost accounting is a specialized skill. It takes a lot of work. It's intense, but those who are specializing in construction accounting know how to do this effectively. And this is the type of accounting that you need to have in your construction company to really make decisions, because not only are you looking at how the margin you're making for the company, but you're looking for the margin that you're making on each individual project. And then you need to have a way of comparing the two data together to say, am I doing well in my projects? And is it helping me to grow the business at a certain margin? So those things are important. As you can see, that can be very complicated. It's very challenging to do if you don't have that specialized knowledge yourself. So it's always mind blowing. I'm like, man, how does a construction guy or girl get into this industry and without that job cost accounting knowledge, like become successful? Because it's so tough, and it's really tedious and meticulous type of accounting. And I don't see how you can really do it on your own. So having someone to help you do that and really help you strategize and have those meetings around the reporting of it is it's second to none. You need that. So that's kind of the difference between a construction accountant versus a general accountant. We know exactly what we're looking for. We know how to do job cost accounting, and we are here to advise you on if your company is doing well based on the size of the projects you're taking on, the margins you're making on those projects, how well you're estimating on those projects. It's just a lot of different variables, but to have someone you can sit down with and talk those things through is priceless.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've experienced all that. And, it's interesting when I go into some of my clients and I start asking them about things like WIP reports, work in progress reports, or, they don't understand the difference in how to see how financially viable they are when they either look at accrual or cash basis accounting. So talk to my audience a little bit about that, just about some of the either the knowledge they should know or just some of the pitfalls.
Yeah, so definitely it starts with the chart of accounts. The chart of account has to be set up properly to get you the right reporting that you're looking for. So you need to make sure you have the right expenses inside of cost of goods sold, and then the right expenses separated from cost of goods sold, so that way you can clearly see the job expenses versus the administrative expenses. So those are two things that needs to be separated on the chart of accounts. And then you need to have a good project management software, so that way, because a good project management software will allow you to how well you're doing on projects, and from a percentage of completion method, which is a certain method that we use in accounting to see how much of the job has been completed based on cost. So it's a cost to cost type of method that we use, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to have more money spent on the job than what has been collected from the job. And so what we're looking for there is what we call underbillings or overbillings. So when the job is underbilled, that means I have spent more on that job than I have collected, as far as receivables go from that job. And we want to see companies with healthy overbillings. You don't want to be significantly overbilled, but we do want to see that you are overbilled.
Right. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've experienced that.
right. Because if you're underbilled, you will see quickly that you're going to run into a cash flow problem. And once you run into a cash flow problem, it's very hard to get out of that problem. And so some clients, I actually just had a client yesterday that I spoke with. We talked about this in length because we needed to collect because we were seeing that we were underbilled on a couple of projects. And we said, hey, we need to file a lien, because these liens is going to help us.
Yeah.
Get the money collected. And the client was a little nervous about filing a lien because they didn't want to ruin the relationship. But I can tell you this, everyone in the construction industry understand the lien process. So it's not going to ruin the relationship. It's just going to put people on notice, like, hold on, this person is professional. They're serious about what they're doing, and we need to go hurry up and get them paid so they can get this lien removed. It's not something that's looked upon badly, but it does help you to get paid. And so that way you can keep a healthy overbilling, on these projects. So that's important.
No, so you touched on a point earlier that, I mean, the construction business, I think it's fair to say it's a tough business. It can be pretty adversarial, and but you also have to hold your line. You have to stick by the rules. You have to do your liens. You have to, follow the process. And if you do get into a cash crunch, and a lot of the companies, the developers, whoever the clients are, typically had pretty hard and fast rules around payment dates.
Yeah.
So it's not as if you can just suddenly rush and at their door and give them an invoice and they'll get the money in 24 hours. That's unlikely to happen. So you have to be pretty organized and do all the proper billing and make sure you submit all your paperwork and dates. Is that fair?
That's very fair to say. So that requires you to be extremely organized and have a pretty tight accounting system.
Yeah. So talk about how, I think, to be fair, some parts of the country are now beginning to see a little bit of a slowdown, and maybe, people slower to make decisions, maybe tightening up on some of their and some of the bidding process. How do construction owners look at ways in which they can tighten up on their costs? Because they probably, like everybody else, have seen wages go up, they've seen materials go skyrocket. What were some of the things that they could do to really analyze their margins?
So one thing that we need to do is a lot of guys out there, they don't have a system that they use of how they mark up, their estimates. When we're talking about material, equipment, subcontract costs, they just say, hey, I've learned that we just do it by 40%, or we just do it by 30%, or whatever it is. But you actually could be losing bids because you're just doing this general, so you're marking up yourself out of the running to win the bid, when you may not truly need to mark it up that much to actually make a profit, or make the desired profit that your company needs. So you need to first have a baseline and have an understanding of what your net operating profit margin is. And so you'll know how much expenses that you're carrying on average month to month. And then say, okay, I know I need to cover, these amount of expenses every month. So now we need to determine what that break even number is. And then also what profit margin needs to be generated to yield the profit that we desire. Because every construction company is different, even if they're in the same line of work. Like if one landscaper is doing commercial, then another landscaper is doing commercial, they may be running their business totally separately, because I may be offering certain benefit packages to my employees that this other landscaper is not doing. So therefore, this one landscaper needs to have higher markups because he needs to cover that cost, versus this other landscaper doesn't need to have higher markups because they don't have those benefits that they're offering to their employees. So everything is very different, and we need to analyze it from that standpoint, and then go back to the project and say, okay, if things are starting to slow down, we need to have a range of profit margin that we're trying to generate from a job. So this is our ideal profit margin, and that may be 30%, 25%. But then we say, hey, but we can still accept a 15% margin, and it still will give us a profit. It won't give us a significant profit, but it will keep the company moving.
Right.
And so it will allow us to win jobs in a tough market, especially when there's a bidding war.
Plus, the I suppose the accountant, or especially the owner, need to know those ranges.
Yeah.
So that they can, based on the pipeline of work that they can make those decisions.
Correct.
So that needs to be a constant thing. And talking about being constant, we have seen some significant increases in costs, labor, materials over the last few years. And I think it's fair to say that I think most people would look at their costs maybe every 6 months, more likely annually.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably fair these days that most owners should be looking at that almost like on a monthly basis, because things are changing so rapidly.
Yeah, you should be always completing projects, and especially if you're completing projects on a monthly basis. If it's that fast, you want to go back and review and break down that project and say, hey, what happened here? Why did we get this margin? How well did the project run? Was ran? And then where are the opportunities for improvement? And so that way we can improve the margins. And a lot of times that's scheduling. Scheduling is a big profit sucker, if for lack of better words, because if the project doesn't end on schedule, you can almost bet your bottom dollar you're going to lose money. So whatever you set out that estimate to be before, if it's pre-construction or whatever you want to call it, but before the project starts, that margin has now differed from when the project ends, all because it didn't end on schedule. So when the schedule is extended out, then there's probably more money being spent, more than likely. And we need to know what caused that schedule to kind of blow up. Was it weather? Was it our fault? Was it the client's fault? We need to identify that so we can improve the next project. And so that needs to be happening all the time. So there needs to be kind of a sit down at the end of a project to break down what went well and what went wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that actually brings up another question. Again, it's something that I experience a lot, where, how do you really determine what caused the job to go sideways? Was it the way it was bid in the first place? Maybe it was underbid and the estimator didn't realize that the costs have gone up. Is it scheduling inefficiency and the manager didn't schedule properly? Or what I actually hear more frequently is that when the original job was bid, that information wasn't necessarily translated into, hours and breaking down those jobs into tasks and I suppose small projects and following those steps. It was almost the guys were sent out in the job, and it was almost like the estimate was even forgotten about. So there hasn't been like a true tracking budget versus actuals.
Yeah.
So I see that happening a lot. I don't know what your experience is.
Yeah, so that is happening a lot. And how every time I get a new client, the first thing we do is we create a labor burden rate for every employee. So, because we need to know that if we're paying this employee $30 an hour, is it a true $30 an hour that they're costing the company? Or is that $30 an hour now changed to $38 an hour? Mm. And so now when we're estimating jobs and we're putting that labor cost inside of that estimate, we don't need to be putting it in at $30 an hour. We need to be putting it in at $38 an hour. And that's what that cost needs to be. So that way, when we're tracking the hours, and hopefully you have a project management system that allows you to have the guys clock in to a particular job, so those hours can then flow to that job and be compared to the budget hours versus the actual hours. And so now you'll be able to see like, oh, this particular employee worked on the job and it took them like 4 hours more, to do what we had scheduled out to do. Was it because of a bad part of my estimate, or was it because that employee was inefficient? Mm-hmm. So it allows you to ask those questions like, is it just this employee? Because if I put employee A on that job, they probably would have got it done in the hours that we allocated. But because employee B was put on the job, it took him 4 extra hours to complete it. So that may help you discover that this employee was just more, less efficient than employee A. So those type of questionings, questions should be developed, and you should be asking yourself after the job has been completed, or maybe even during the job. Like you can see like, hey, I see that you're getting close to, meeting what we've budgeted for this job, and you still have so much more to go. What's happening? Why is it taking so long? Maybe there was something complicated about the work environment that made it hard to maneuver for that employee to get the job done. And so, because maybe they had to go up a hill or they had to go down a hill, it's just so many different variables that once you've analyzed the data, you can say, okay, next time when I estimate this job and this job is on a hill, I know that it's going to take this employee 4 more hours to complete it because they have to move material from downhill to uphill. And that's the reason why it took so long. So just those little simple little nuances can help you make better decisions on your estimates moving forward.
No, that makes sense. And that actually brings up a good follow-up question in that I think just because of that, either that adversarial environment or just those challenges, then there's, when situations come up, a hard dig or something like that, or even maybe if an estimate was done late 2022 and now the work's just being approved right now, there's obviously some conversations that need to be had, and either bringing up change orders or saying, hey, it was bid then, but now my costs have gone up by 5%. And a lot of people don't necessarily, they feel uncomfortable going back and having those conversations, trying to negotiate more, trying to come up with some type of change orders. I mean, is that something that you see much? And what's your message to your clients when you come across those situations?
Get your contract structured the right way. You need to have that language in your contract saying that, hey, if our start date differs from the estimated start date, that you now have some language in there that protects you because of cost changes that may come. So you have like these cost clauses, inside of your contract, and saying that, hey, if cost changes by this date or whatever it is, then there'll be some changes in the estimate and we have to increase it and they have to agree to it. So get with your construction attorney to make sure that you have a solid contract, because that's where it starts. The contract is going to protect you, and you will never have to have this conversation in length or feel uncomfortable because they agreed to it from the beginning. And so if we can get them to agree to, cost increases in the beginning, it would just be making them aware that it has happened and that they agreed to it already.
No, I like that. I've got a couple more questions here. I hear more and more scenarios where people are moving out of the job market. They're looking at buying companies, and I know contracting service companies are definitely on the radar for companies, because they're somewhat recession proof. But when companies look at construction type companies, equipment is part of that. They might have a lot of trucks, like might have a lot of heavy equipment. How does a sort of a newbie coming in look at ways in which they can protect themselves or protect the downside, or just analyze those assets associated with construction type companies?
I hope I'm going to answer this correctly, but I guess what we're saying is if I'm going to buy a construction company, how do I value the assets that construction company has?
Yeah.
Well, number one, it's not that valuable, because it's these trucks and equipment. These are things that were used to produce or to obtain the revenue for that company. So I don't even look at it as hard assets that can increase the price of that company, because those are depreciating assets, and they're fast depreciating assets, and then they're used all the time. It's not like a building. If that construction company owned its office building, or it had rental properties or investment properties, now that could increase the cost of that construction company to me, and then I'll place more value on purchasing that construction company because I have some real true assets that I can leverage, and those assets can appreciate. So there's nothing that I can do to a vehicle to appreciate it. There's nothing I can do to a piece of equipment to appreciate it, but there is something I can do to a building to appreciate it. So
Right.
now that's where the true value I can now say the cost of this company is justified, because they have buildings that have appreciable assets.
Right.
But any company that I'm buying that has depreciable assets, that's just wrapped into, I'm still just looking at, hey, how much are you making? And what truly am I'm getting? Do you have a pipeline? Do you have a marketing system that's flawless, that gets, you 100 leads a month? And I'm just gonna, I'm gonna inherit that. Is that something that I'm purchasing? Or am I purchasing your labor force, because your labor force is highly skilled? And are they going to stay with me? That's another thing, because my culture is different from the culture you have. I may have a more professional culture. You may have more of a lax culture. So there's a lot of different variables to consider when you're purchasing a company, and what's the true value? Like, what are you purchasing that you can leverage once you become the owner of that company? Is there something proprietary to that company that now you're going to inherit?
Right.
And a good marketing system can be one. A good organizational system could be another. Like, they just have a great process on how they onboard clients, how they offboard clients, how they get through a job. And I don't have that system developed, so I'm buying your company so I can inherit that system, and now I have the playbook, and now I can execute it. So
that makes sense.
those are things that you have to consider when you're purchasing other companies.
Yeah, it makes sense. And slightly related question, and when you have got these depreciating assets quickly, but you're also trying to leverage your company, how do you then have the information to be able to approach banks or other financial institutions to try and secure some type of loan or line of credit or something?
So this is another thing. I know everybody is big on, like, I don't want to pay any taxes at the end of the year. So I want to have zero taxes paid. Well, if you're consistently paying zero taxes every year, you're not lendable. Because guess what? You're not showing a profit. And banks only want to lend money to people who can pay them back. And because when you pay, when you borrow money and you're making a loan payment, you're making a loan payment out of what? Your profit. So if you have no profit, you can't pay me back.
Right.
So I don't want to lend you any money. So you can continue not paying taxes, but also know that you're never going to get a dime from me. So that's kind of what the bank is saying. So, hey, you want to pay taxes, because guess what? If you're paying taxes, that means you're profitable. And if you're profitable, that means now you can scale and you have more opportunities, because now guess what? You can go to a bank and ask them for $1 million and they'll give it to you so you can go buy this new building, or guess what? Purchase this other construction company.
Yeah, that makes sense. And probably more so relevant these days where it's becoming tougher to get money and it's kind of costlier to get money as well. So showing that profit definitely helps you. So Tim, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. How do people get in touch with you, find out a bit more about your business?
Yeah, so you can either go to g+f.com or you can go to construction.accountant, construction.accountant, and that will bring you to my website. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, and Facebook. So those are the 3 social media platforms I'm on, and I'd love to hear from you.
Cool. Tim, thank you again for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you and for you sharing all your information. So have a great birthday. Have a great weekend.
Same here, Robert. Thank you so much for having me on.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully that was pure, dead brilliant for you today, and you got some great takeaways for your business or your leadership role. This is Robert Clinkenbeard, and we'd love to get you and your friends to join us in our future journey. So please subscribe through the various podcast channels or visit thecommerciallandscaper.com or brucewilsoncompany.com and check out some more information there. Anyway, hopefully you all have a pure, dead, brilliant day. Cheers, everyone.